It's the Strokes' new album, The New Abnormal, and that song is Selfless. I'm a big fan of the Strokes, always have been. My kids kind of got me into them more than I did on my own. Although I remember their first Last Night, that first video on MTV is kind of a retro video. So cool, so cool. So yeah, I've listened to the new album. I like it. It's good. I like the kind of modern electronic sound that they got. So I plan on playing some music to get things started. This whole video thing that I'm doing is gonna deal with all kinds of stuff. Music's one of those things. I'm a big music fan. I've kind of been into a lot of retro country right now, like Colter Wall, Cody Johnson, kind of 90s retro country. Dude's just a great singer, has some great songs. So I'll probably be playing some of that stuff. What is it? Rivers of Nihil, new metal band, or a metal band that I'm into right now. Kind of good. Probably won't do a lot of metal, maybe a little bit. That'd be kind of funny as an intro. But anyway, so got my coffee. I'm Viking Power, Uncle, aka Uncle Kent, and you're in my kitchen, Uncle Kent's kitchen. Got my Squatch cup. Drinking Bustelo this morning, so kind of ran out of our other coffee, but Bustelo is pretty good, especially if you make like a Cuban. My kids are into Cuban coffees, man. That stuff's so good. It's the best. Anyway, so the focus of the video today is kind of on this coronavirus a little bit, but not really all that much. I mean, everybody's wanting to get back to work. I get that. People are tired of being locked down. I get that. But kind of what I want to focus on today is getting out of the cities. I want to focus on that whole theme in this video, and I'm going to try to make it pretty concise and cover some material in this. Getting out of cities, because everybody's hunkered down in their homes, and we could be living, or you could be living, if you're in the city, you could be living anywhere in the country. Doesn't matter, because you're with your family, you're at home, and you're shopping, getting deliveries. I've been watching Portnoy's pizza reviews and his unboxing. That's great entertainment, tremendous entertainment. And he's getting all this stuff delivered to his house. He could be living anywhere. I mean, I live out in the country. I live in, and I get delivery trucks all the time to my house. Amazon, UPS, Postal Service, doesn't matter. Get a whole bunch of them coming to my house. And so, and they deliver all over the country. That's not a big issue. So you guys are, I just mentioned entertainment. People are YouTubing, Netflixing. You can do that anywhere. People are going to church on their computers and on their TVs. People are ordering food, getting food shipped. Portnoy, it was funny watching him getting pizzas from all over the country. He had a good one today, or maybe last night. It was his new best from the New Haven area, where he thinks it's the best pizza. He's probably right. I've been up that way. Best New York style pizza I ever had wasn't in New York City. It was up in I think Connecticut, somewhere up in that way. And man, there's so many good places. So, and that's my favorite style. But anyway, so people are ordering food from, on their phones, through their computers, and getting stuff shipped to their houses. So, why is it that everybody's caged in cities? A lot of people don't feel caged. You do right now. If you're in New York City, you're feeling caged. You're feeling frustrated. I mean, I live out in the country. I'm not caged. I go out every day. I walk my property every day. I've been walking it, trying to get some miles in, get some exercise in, keep the weight down, all that stuff. But I don't feel that confined here. The only thing that confines me is when I go to the cities and I see all the confining going on there. And if you look at why is everybody in cities? Why? How did that happen? The virus is worse in the cities, and in particular, the the city that's hit hardest in this country is New York City by far. I don't know how many of you guys have been to New York City. I've been there plenty of times. Great city. I love it. Certainly not an expert on that city, but, I've been to, Long Island, plenty of times. I haven't been to the outer boroughs, really. That's something I never really explored. But I've been, to Long Island a bunch, and seen that, and been to a lot of places. There are a lot of cool things to do, yeah, obviously, but it's hit really hard. If you're going to New York City, especially if you're driving from New York, and I've done that, or New Jersey, and you come around like a bend, all of a sudden, bam, it looks like 5 cities in one jammed together. I mean, you can say it's the greatest city on earth. I mean, people from Chicago would be mad at me for saying that. But it's a tremendous city, but man, you are jammed in there. I remember going to one in Chinatown, one of my favorite Chinese restaurants that the great Anthony Bourdain recommended. I can't remember the name of that place. It had like kind of a Western Chinese type of food. It had a lot of curry in it. Some of you guys might know what that place is. I went there, tiny little place. I remember going to the bathroom in that place, and fortunately, I had to take a leak. I didn't have to drop a deuce, but man, you couldn't sit down. A guy my size couldn't sit down in that bathroom. It was so tiny, so small. There's no space there. People live in little boxes in New York City. Why? Why do they do that? The virus is it's hard to get away, and it's hit New York City hard. That's one of the reasons is there is no space. Look at like California. They're way better off. Why? I mean, go look at LA from a picture. That city is spread out. It's a giant city, but it's spread out. There's space. It's a warmer climate. Maybe that has something to do with it. But California has a ton of space, but still people jam themselves into these little cities. I don't know why. I was just up in Northern California a few years ago, and man, it's beautiful. We're driving places there that look like Ireland. Is gorgeous. Lots of space there. Lots of rural places in California. You go upstate, there's country. Like old John Party I think he's a Northern California guy, And, he's a country dude, real country, good stuff too. I like that last album of his. But anyway, there's a better way to live. There's a better way to live, no question. I get it. There's advantages to cities, tremendous advantages to cities. I get that, and I love them. But I love the advantages of the city, not necessarily being jammed in with people in that way. And there's jobs in the city. There's that's where you make the money, but you also pay the cost of living. The cost of living in New York is outrageous as far as housing and things like that. And I was just looking recently at the percentage of New Yorkers who own homes. I think it was like in the 30%, 30%, something like that. I mean, people aren't owning their homes in New York City. Anyway, so I get why, people, the jobs are there, the entertainment's there. If I want to go see the Strokes, I'm not seeing them in my neck of the woods, you have a better chance of seeing great bands and stuff like that in the cities, and the food. I mean, you can't match that. I mean, I get that. I go into Cincinnati to hit some of the spots, some of the good restaurants that I want to go to and stuff like that. So, I get the advantage of the cities, but think creatively, and we have the time right now to think creatively. When you put, I remember somebody talking to me about creativity a while ago, and if you give, someone nothing to work with, and they figure out how to solve a problem, well, that's a true test of creativity. And we're in a box right now, so we got to start thinking innovatively. And we weren't meant to live in these mega cities. We just weren't. There's really no precedent in history. Tribal societies, what do they do? They live in tribes. What do tribes connect to? The families and community and their friends. When you go to a big city, and I grew up in a small city in Aurora, Illinois, like on the outskirts of of Chicago. And that was my whole life, living in the city. And what do you do in the city? You are connected to your neighborhood. And what is your neighborhood? It's kind of like a community. Well, that's kind of like a small town, and that's what happens in big cities. You have your neighborhoods that are like your small towns within this larger metropolis. And why is that? Because people are drawn to a more localized type of thing, and we could have that in the United States. This place is still one of those remarkable places on planet Earth. There is a lot of room in this country. We've been lied to. This place is not overpopulated. It is not overpopulated. I've been to every state in this union except for Hawaii and Alaska. And Hawaii is probably pretty densely populated. I don't even know. I'm not going to speculate. Alaska, I know it isn't. Absolutely not. And I've been to every other state in the union. And there is so much space in this country, so much space. People could live in small towns. Well, how could you deconstruct big cities? Well, it's happened in the past. Go check out the history of the population of Cincinnati, Ohio. I just did it the other day. And Cincinnati, obviously, in early American history, started out as a small town. But Cincinnati's 300,000 something in population today. There's at one point in its history, it's like 500,000. So Cincinnati's actually gotten smaller through time. Used to be a more important city in the country in earlier times in our history, and it got smaller. This could happen to a lot of cities. And how that happened, I don't know. I don't know the history of it, but something naturally, probably the country expanded, and there are other cities that became more important in those time periods. But we could deconstruct cities. We could find new ways to live. I mean, we don't have to live in cities anymore. We really don't. I've known people. My wife has a cousin who lives in Colorado, but his office is in Boston. And he works from his home and computer. A lot of people are doing that right now. Why couldn't we do that anywhere in the country? And what would be the advantage of that? Well, lots of advantages. Lots of advantages. The advantages of is a sense of community. And you got to ask who wanted these big cities to be there in the first place? Well, I think it's pretty simple. I think it was the powers that be, the industrialists, the super rich, wanted to jam people in the cities and in mega cities. And what happens when people are in mega cities? They're easier to control. And that's a big part of modern American history. Go from like the 1880s through the 20th century, and you see a gigantic shift. We used to be a rural kind of society, and we shifted pretty rapidly into a urban society. People leaving their places in the South, their culture, and going up to Chicago, going up to New York. In Chicago, in particular, I know that one. There's a lot of people from the South that went up there. In the area where I live, the Dayton, Cincinnati, all kinds of people from the South, from Tennessee, Kentucky, came up north to work in the cities. Leaving their culture behind. And what do a lot of these people do? When they retire, they go back to the places where they always wanted to be. Why'd they come up? Because of factories and jobs. Maybe if we didn't have these mega cities, we could find a better way to live in local economies. And I don't know how you do that specifically. Culture happens organically. I don't think you can force culture. But it's, all I know is go look at European history. When the people got really rich, what did they do? They built castles out in the country. Why? They knew it was a better way of life. And we got to figure out a way. I know I am. I've lived in the suburbs. I grew up in the city, and country living is the way for me. And I can still drive to a city to get all those advantages. But what if we drained the brain of the cities and took it to the small towns? Well, then maybe you could find like a really tremendous Chinese restaurant in a small town, or find your pho place or your ramen place in a small town that's like legit. It could happen. You drain the brain of the city and get people living out in smaller communities and being tied into their smaller communities and relying on their smaller communities. Something I think is possible. I'd love to see it happen. I don't know. Curious to see what you guys think. So leave a comment if you'd like. And until next time, cheers. Enjoy your coffee. Enjoy your morning. So long from Uncle Ken's Kitchen.